All right, let's have a good time, all right? Thank you all so much for your expertise, and thank you so much for being a part of today's program. This one is just a toss-up to see what resonates with anyone who wants to jump in here first. And the first question is what one trend or disruption, whether technological, economic, or cultural, that's having an impact on how your organization is planning for the future of work? Part B of that is, and how are you meeting that challenge? It's open to anyone.
Oh, sure. So I will take the low-hanging fruit and definitely will jump on the bandwagon with advanced technologies. It's really impacting and reshaping the future of work at Amazon. So some specific ways that we are seeing that work is, as was highlighted in the prior session, is really taking a look at our workforce systems, at the work that our individuals are doing, and asking ourselves, where should technology work to resolve and move that work to where it's human work versus technology work? So a couple of the key workforce systems that we're putting in place is using technology to help us better understand what the current and emerging skills will be needed for our workforce. Then taking that information and working backwards to develop skills matrix and learning and development to help upskill and reskill our workforce to support those emerging pieces. And then in addition, working very closely with our workforce to help them feel empowered when it comes to additional and advanced technologies, so that they are at the forefront versus something being done to them, they're helping to cultivate and support their long-term career aspirations.
Well stated, Amanda. I'll read this again. What's one trend or disruption, whether technological, economic, or cultural, that's having an impact on your organization, is planning for the future of work, and how are you meeting that challenge?
Yeah, so for us at Denver International Airport, we take more of a global lens to this, and that is really changing demographics and economics globally. We're actually seeing a growing middle class in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. And so we're looking at how are those changes affecting us here locally. And you have people that are affording luxuries for the very first time, like international travel. And so how we connect that back home is we at DEN have adapted what we call a megatrends mindset. And what that really encompasses is really how are we looking at these trends and how are we bringing our workforce along with us? And just yesterday, we convened a megatrend symposium, much like today, a diverse group of stakeholders having these discussions so that we are bringing not just our workforce, but the community with us and having real conversations within our workforce development programs, our internships, our leadership development programs, and really it's become part of our everyday conversations, even in the executive level, so that we're constantly really embedding that future of work and those discussions into our everyday operations.
Outstanding.
I would just add, it's very interesting at this point that we have 5 different generations in the workforce, and trying to meet the unique needs and preferences of each of those is a challenge I'm sure every single one of us is thinking about. At Fidelity, we're continually looking at and speaking with our employees, or we call associates, to try to understand the benefits and the different on-site perks that could help them. 77,000 employees worldwide hopefully live their best life at work as well as at home. That active listening is very important, not only from an enterprise lens, but a regional lens, a business unit lens, and we do so in a myriad of ways. We do formal pulse check-ins, we do targeted surveys, we do informal and formal listening posts, and all of those things help us lean into understanding what our employees' needs are. A couple examples I would just share quickly. It's led to some great enhancements on site through working with our real estate organization, who have been able to deploy quiet rooms and adjustable workspaces to help our employees be more productive, but also support some movement both in the office and outside of the office. A couple of our regions are really excited about a pickleball court that they've been able to deploy, and even complementary yoga. But even more seriously, we partner a lot with our working parents and the needs that they have in today's workforce and at home, which has led us to enhance some benefits in support of them. Things like expert elder care, child care coordinators, and a virtual network of professionals to support both their mental and emotional health, not only for themselves, but also for their families.
Don't let me go last.
Come on now.
Okay,
You
all
got
right.
it.
All of those resonate with the experience that we're seeing at Jacobs, and a little background on the teams that I have the privilege of leading. We're very much focused on the design and delivery of infrastructure projects. There were a lot of nice positives there. I'll speak about a disruptor that we're seeing very acutely right now. Halts in federal funding budgets are really impactful because so much of the work we do is for public agencies, whether it be federal, state, local. Other arms of our business are delivering for the Department of Defense, NASA, other places where uncertainty in funding creates a bit of a little hiccup and the heart rate monitor goes off for a few folks. What allows us to remain agile in that environment is the ability to have a diversified workforce across the globe and clients across the globe who will continue to have project needs where we can pivot a staff if some funding disappears for a bit. We generally don't believe that it is disappearing forever. It might be a blip in time, but one of the upsides of that is, as we're seeing some of the federal workforce being called at this time, there's tremendous talent coming out of places like the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, EPA, some of these other organizations, and it's going to sound a little vulturistic, but we're excited to be able to evaluate how those folks can enhance our teams. They're going through a difficult time and hoping that they can land really nicely and safely in organizations like ours and provide solutions that they have expertise in.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for that. There's so many questions. I want to do the absolute best that I can to get all of these questions in, so work with me here. Maria, let's start with you. You've led workforce initiatives in both transit and aviation, two industries with strong public service missions and unique infrastructure needs. How do you approach workforce strategy in high-stakes, high-impact environments like these?
Absolutely. So I think for us and for me personally, I love high stakes, high impact environments. It keeps me busy. But really, it provides an opportunity to make a meaningful impact. And both industries, and I group them in infrastructure, are 24/7, 365 operations, responsible for keeping people safe, but getting them to where they need to be. And for DEN, we are so much more than just a transportation hub. In fact, we're an economic engine for the Rocky Mountain region. And so part of that strategy to make a meaningful impact in this type of environment is really aligning long-term vision with our current needs. And how we've done that and what I've been able to bring to DEN is really empowering the next generation and bringing them along, keeping them engaged and excited and active participants in the change. And so how we define the next generation, we can very easily think of the youth or next generation literally. But for us, it is youth, it's emerging leaders, it's those individuals with a second or third career, and even individuals emerging into the workforce after being impacted by the justice system. And so being inclusive in that engagement is really important and part of the philosophy. Another piece is leadership, right? How do we have those conversations at various levels? Young, K through 12, right? We have programs that impact that age group. How do we start having those conversations early and often and identifying and naming what leadership is in their everyday skill sets as they show up either in the classroom, or in the program that they're in, but really naming leadership skill sets so that individuals can connect the dots in how their behaviors really represent some really critical business skill sets.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for that. Kirsten, here's your question. We've been hearing about the importance of skill-based hiring for many years, but its implementation is sometimes stalled between a CEO's good intentions and a talent manager's execution. That's not the case with Fidelity. Your team is a leader in skill-based hiring and internal mobility. Can you share a specific example of how Fidelity is helping employees grow in new roles, especially those that may not match their original experience on paper?
Thank you, and I'm so fortunate to have some of my amazing team here who's located in the region who do all of that incredible skills-based hiring. So we at Fidelity really look at hiring for potential. We certainly are obviously looking for things and specific skills for specific roles, but we believe in that opportunity for potential. We also are really looking at ways to continue to invest in skill set and training and talent development programs for our employees to help them with what we call career vitality, which is gaining new skills, experiences, and pursuing new roles. So not only are we seeking to really hire incredible talent, but we're working really hard to invest in our employees through learning and development programs that they can gain new skills, build upon existing skills, and apply those skills in a myriad of different ways. An example of that, I would say, is we have a 9 to 16 week technology program where we have associates who can gain both technical and professional skills that can help them starting out their career in a technology role at the company, and that's something that we've seen has been really, really successful.
Thank you for that. Amanda with Amazon. Amazon truly has some inspiring incentives for attracting and retaining talent, from offering college education for your employees, benefits on day one, to flexible schedules. What workforce retention strategy has surprised you most in terms of success, and what are you planning next?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for recognizing our efforts to retain and grow our talent. I'm going to say the number one program that continues to surprise us is our career choice programming, which allows our associates to receive up to 95% or even at times 100% of their tuition completely paid for upskilling and development. That can be degree related, it can be certificate related, and is aligned to the most in-demand roles, not only at Amazon, but broader than that, the most in-demand roles from a economic and a community standpoint, with really the focus that if we are growing our associates, that they will be able to further support the communities in which we operate. Some of the key benefits that we've seen with the career choice programming includes, of course, increased retention, job mobility, both within current departments, but other facets of Amazon, which helps to ensure that we're keeping the instructional knowledge and continuing to grow that knowledge within the organization. We've also seen that help us champion our placement as a strong employer, employer who is committed to long-term growth and development. And then, of course, the versatility that comes with skill development, whether that individual decides to stay in their current role after completing their programming, or they continue to grow. They are a more well-rounded employee and professional, and able to contribute to their peers and their team in new ways as well.
And I would be remiss not to name that Amazon has been the sponsor of our presidential scholarship program at Community College of Aurora for the first 2 years, and part of that program we sponsored 2 of your employees at Amazon, and so thank you all so much for that. And I just want to say to the room, if you want to sponsor this scholarship program, our foundation is present today. But let's talk to Jeanne. It is my understanding that you value very greatly mentorship and see it as a key priority, especially as seasoned engineers retire. How are you tackling that challenge in a hybrid environment, and what creative approaches are helping with retention and knowledge transfer?
That's a great question, and it all comes back to right now something I think we're all dealing with, which is the hybrid environment. We got really, really, really comfortable in our homes, in our basements. One of our senior folks who has a talent with words and phrasing called it pajama engineering for a while, and he didn't mean it in a nice way. We have found different pockets and different places where we're struggling to create that natural environment for mentoring, and so we had to be more intentional about how that would happen. Here in the Denver area, I found it was our senior folks who really enjoyed being home. The younger folks were coming in, and they were looking for mentors. Mentors in developing technical expertise, mentoring in taking on growing Thank you. We'll trade it out. Okay, thank you. Step-by-step leadership development, whether that be lead a task, lead a project, lead a team. We all deserve and need mentors in those areas to help us grow. So here in the Denver area, it was the senior folks who liked staying home. In Las Vegas, it was the younger folks who didn't want to come in. And it was just kind of an interesting little sociological experiment that was happening, where it was happening in different ways in different places. We did some strong encouragement of coming into work a certain number of days a week, or coming into the office a certain number of days a week. And we had moderate success, and then it started to kind of tail off a little bit. And so just this month, we are trying a 2-day-a-week ask. And the ask is, come in, see what is beneficial about it. Let us know what the pain points are. And then we're going to work at removing those pain points, so that we can encourage more development. If I need to talk to someone on this panel and I'm at home, I have to schedule a 30-minute Teams call, right? But if we're here, all of us, on a Tuesday, I can just walk down the hall and it's a 5-minute conversation. And so it's incredibly valuable to have more access to people face to face.
Thank you for sharing that, which is a great segue as we now are going to talk about this intersection between technology and talent. And to kick us off in this particular part of the discussion, Amanda, as you think about using artificial intelligence in the talent space, what innovations or opportunities do you see emerging? And what are some promising AI-powered tools or approaches you're using or see on the horizon for mapping future skills needs or creating personalized learning paths for employees?
Thank you. Well, we are very optimistic. I am very optimistic about the future of AI tools, as highlighted earlier, really with the opportunity to create additional efficiencies within our workforce development systems. So specifically, leveraging AI tools to help us better understand emerging and current needs by analyzing job descriptions, labor market statistics, and then working to develop skills matrix to support that through training and development. In addition, also using that information to understand where the current skill gaps are with our current workforce. So using our performance management systems, our survey systems, our attrition data and trends to analyze and provide clear outputs on actions and next steps that should be taken. As a workforce development professional, my role continues to be applying and developing the strategy, but with the important inputs that AI tools provide us, it takes more of the analysis away with, again, the key output so that I can focus on the strategy, the business adoption, change management, working closely with our education and our community partners, and once again, that work that really only a human can do by leveraging that technology base. Some of the current emerging things that we continue to be really excited about includes AI career coaching, real-time skill development, so a chatbot potentially watching an activity and then providing in-the-moment coaching, development, and feedback. As we think about the selection process, providing hiring manager coaching and feedback as we continue to align their selection techniques. Also, the implementation of virtual reality, both from a skill development but also a selection standpoint, really allowing our emerging talent to have a better understanding of the role that they are interviewing for through a simulated standpoint. So there's so many exciting things on the horizon as we think about further leveraging technology for our talent development systems.
Well, thank you for that. You know, we've got a little room here in the schedule. I'm just curious, do you all have any other AI-powered tools that would be for the good of the audience? I see a lot of people taking notes here. Are there any other AI tools at your respective organizations that you would like to share?
I could just share over the last year, we deployed actually a learning and talent development platform that helps associates look at a period of self-reflection. They can partner and share that both, self-reflectively for themselves, but hopefully have a conversation with their manager as well. It helps them do self-reflection around their aspirations, their career goals, and also look at skills that they have and skills that they want to gain. And what that does then is help invite a conversation around career development and ultimately mobility, and provide some opportunities for experiential learning. But it also has an opportunity for the associates to highlight learning pathways. So it's linked to specific skill categories. It's linked to also having the capability of looking at our internal roles so they can explore what a future role would look like for them down the line.
And for us, it's not really a new technology, but something within the public sector that we've really adopted this last year is providing all of our employees with Microsoft Copilot. Sounds very simple, but really it's allowed us to test this technology and really kind of remove the stigma of AI and new technology, and how we have really blended that with human-centered skills is not only providing employees, all employees, with bite-sized training opportunities to hone their skill set so they can become experts in that, but also on a weekly basis, we create the space for all employees to come together, if their schedule allows, but just to have a conversation. What are the pain points? What are the successes? What are they learning? So that you create that collaborative space for folks to utilize a tool and improve productivity. And so just kind of thinking about it from kind of an enterprise perspective, how do we bring in and incorporate a technology in a way that really includes the employee and provides them the space to talk to us about how that's impacting their work.
Thank you, Maria. Jeanne, did you want to share anything?
Sure. One area where we're developing the internal AI tools is around quality control. Thinking about design, development of infrastructure, you have a set of design drawings and specifications, and imagine on these sheets of drawings that you've got tags that correspond to a design specification in one area, or you might have a standard piece in on another drawing. And if those tags don't match, then it can be very difficult for this to be constructed in the field. It sounds like something that should be easy to catch. It happens all the time. Using AI to do some checking of those things is sort of that baby step into it, and then it goes into checking calculations and goes into checking other pieces. And I think at first there was some trepidation that this couldn't possibly be that beneficial. I mean, how could we replace the design thinking that that is our bread and butter of our business? But what this is doing is what I heard in that first session was taking the robot out of the human and allowing time and energy for more creative space. So lots of development. We're in some exciting early stages of putting those tools to work.
I love it. I love it. Just to have some crowd interaction here for a moment, how many of you all raise your hand if you were utilizing artificial intelligence in the workplace 3 years ago? 3 years ago, please raise your hand. How about now? How many of you all are utilizing? I love it. I love it. And the way how artificial intelligence is certainly getting ingrained in everything it is that we do. So many opportunities in terms of how we create efficiencies and new talent pipelines. Jeanne, let's stick with you here. What emerging technologies do you see having the greatest impact on your workforce in the next 3 to 5 years, and how will they impact the workforce?
I think it's from a variety of perspectives in our industry. It is very much around data and AI. I think that's the obvious answer, right? Given the focus that we've had here already this afternoon. the capabilities are going to be endless, and so it's a matter of choosing where and how we get started in these first initial steps. In the industry that I'm working in, data centers require lots of space, construction and development, lots of energy, and it turns out lots and lots of water. And so we're using the technology, and then the emergence of that need in the industry is also going to fuel the kinds of work we do in the future. I opened with the discussion around federal funding and maybe providing a bit of a hiccup and something on the heart rate monitor there. The data center popping up as this new business industry in and of itself is going to drive diversification in what we're delivering as well.
Maria, how are you balancing automation and AI with the development? It happened again. There we go. Maria, how are you balancing automation and AI with the development of human-centered skills like communication, leadership, and collaboration? And are these durable skills getting enough attention?
Yeah, so I mentioned the co-pilot pilot that's really grown. But another thing that we do, and I'll share in a bit, is really centered around leadership. That really is the fundamental foundation element that we have and embed our discussions on. And so when we have either training or those weekly sessions with our employees, it's really focused on empowerment. How are you utilizing that technology, but how are you empowering, yes, yourself, but your team to evolve your own work? And another thing that we do to kind of blend both is really collaborating with other airports. We're big on after-action reviews when we try something different. We talked about megatrends mindsets. We are constantly testing new technologies, and we're not always going to get it right. So success or lessons learned, we are proponents of developing those after-action reviews, sharing it with the industry, because we believe collectively that we are going to approach the future together. And so those best practices and lessons learned, we're very keen on, yes, communicating within the organization, but broadly in the industry.
Same question for you, Kirsten. How are you balancing automation and AI with the development of human-centered skills like communication, leadership, and collaboration? And are these durable?
Thank you. So what I would say, I mentioned the digital platform and AI capabilities a moment ago, which is, again, an opportunity for our associates to look at both more technical skills as well as explore some of those more durable skills. It's critical for us to have and maintain the human element in financial services. We are dealing with customers, important investments, and that has deep meaning to them. So a lot of what we're doing from a durable skills perspective, I think a lot aligns so much with our leadership principles, things that are core and foundational to our culture at Fidelity. One of those I would highlight as an example is being customer obsessed. Customer obsession is just critical to who we are as a firm, and serving our clients is paramount. Well, in order to do that and do that really well, there's obviously a lot of skills that you need to be able to be registered and to be able to support our customers, but empathy, inclusion, active listening, really understanding what's on the minds of the customer, and relationship building with them is so key to maintaining, hopefully a lifelong relationship. So for us, it's definitely an and we focus quite a bit on those durable skills.
Here goes another question from my own curiosity. I know that in higher education, when artificial intelligence first really began to hit the scene, I think, in mass consumption, there was a fear factor that really began to kick in for a lot of individuals. And I think they had this image of iRobot and Will Smith back in the day writing this whole thing playing out as the computers are going to take over. I imagine that you all have dealt with. I would only imagine that you all have dealt with different fear factors and fears associated with how artificial intelligence is integrated into the work that you all do. Just curious with this audience, what wisdom could you all share from the respective companies that you serve, your perspectives on this manners in which how you all successfully integrated artificial intelligence into the workplace that perhaps you can share with us on today?
This time I'm going to start so no one steals a good answer. I think there is trepidation. It is this idea that the work that I provide that is valuable, the skills that I have, would be replaced by AI, and then I am obsolete. I think that's a common fear. What we're finding is that the ways we can use AI are really in a tools-like fashion. We're using the tools to support what we're doing, to, the pace of play is so incredibly fast, and it gets faster every year regardless of what industry you're in. And to have additional tools at our disposal to be able to support that is valuable. And so advice, I think, is give it a try, understand and recognize trepidation, and be transparent about goals to try to get over that hump.
Yeah, and I would agree with all of those points. In addition, creating a framework for ethical AI usage. So making sure that there are expectations, just like you would have with any other policy change or tool, expectations on how an AI tool should be used, but also taking time to make sure that your workforce is educated on the behind the scenes of how an AI tool works at a high level, so they can understand if the output from that AI tool aligns or if it's potentially incorrect information. That is, again, where the human component still comes in with the AI tools at this particular point, is using that reasoning and that judgment to confirm that it is providing the output that you would have expected.
Great, great. Others? Oh.
I'm just going to add, I think a big piece of this is creating psychological safety and naming the fear and having those conversations with your teams about sometimes us not knowing, us as leaders, not having the answer, right? But navigating and charting the course together. And so for us, I think that's been really powerful to just name it. And as leaders, as senior leaders, actively working to create that psychological safety for our employees to have those conversations and to partner to navigate forward.
And
Kirsten?
the only other thing I would add to everything that's already been said is our employees are very curious. They see these tools, they're curious in how they can apply them. Obviously, we are in a regulated industry, and both to the points of how to use those tools in a responsible manner are critical. But our employees are already curious about it. So it's more important to invite that conversation and to take use case examples and to think those through and be thoughtful around how you can consider applying AI in those instances.
I love it. I love it. Thank you all for answering that question for me. Jeanne, what do you look for in an education workforce partner? We're now switching gears here and talking about partnerships and collaboration. So what do you look for in an education and workforce partner? In this workforce space, this could be a partner in K-12, traditional institution of higher education, or a workforce solutions provider. But can you share an example of a partnership that is delivering real results and one that didn't meet your expectations, and why? And if it didn't meet your expectations, don't say their name, just say them.
Well, there's a couple rules there. Educational partners are critical for the work that we do. I think that being a water treatment engineer isn't necessarily what you hear the kindergartners say they want to be when they grow up. It's probably lower on the list of some things folks aspire to because they don't know it's out there. And I think representation always matters. Representation of seeing someone like yourself in a role that is attainable. If you don't see someone like yourself in a role, you probably don't see that as something you have trouble seeing yourself doing that. And so what we found is partnering with organizations, especially through STEAM programs across the communities where we live and work, is really, really valuable. I've been involved with the Society of Women Engineers through school, then through industry, career fairs. That's where we're really able to showcase the capabilities of what folks can do with the degrees that they're pursuing. We are generally employing engineers, scientists, and architects at Jacobs. And all of the support services that are required to keep fueling that work. We also have a really great partnership with the Colorado Association of Professional Black Engineers and Scientists, and we have our staff working as tutors after school, and we support their work there. We also help coach teams that are competing, maybe by building a bridge out of balsa wood. And these kids are having a lot of fun, and we're having a lot of fun as we're engaging with them. These, again, are ways where we're just exposing the next generation to the possibilities out there that they might not see otherwise.
It is gone. We're just going to share this microphone. What you're sharing is essential. The power of that, not only that mentorship element you were speaking of earlier, but individuals being able to see those that look like them in these roles and essentially see a future for themselves. I think that's very, very, very powerful. Maria, let me ask you the same question, because I know, I don't want to say it for you, but you all have some amazing work happening there at the Denver International Airport that I've most recently learned about. And so let me ask you this question. What do you look for in an education or workforce partner in this workforce space? This could be a K-12 partner or higher education. Can you share an example of a partnership that is delivering real results and one that didn't meet expectations, and why?
Yeah, it's alignment, right? So that's what we look for in our workforce education and our partners in general. We are heavily invested in our people through workforce and economic development programs. And so, the alignment with mission and vision to create meaningful pathways, career pathways, but also willing to creatively work through any workforce barriers that might exist. And a partnership we're really proud of is one with the Department of Corrections and Bayard Enterprises to really uplift and support those that have been impacted by the justice system. And what makes this meaningful is that these individuals and participants go through a 14-week program, and they get the wraparound services. So it's one thing to provide an opportunity, but certain groups really do need those wraparound services. And what that looks like is transportation, meals, leadership skills, right? Those skill sets, and really kind of redefining what that new routine might look like. And so since its inception in 2023, we've impacted over 300 individuals, and they join us and are supervised within our maintenance department. And so the skill sets and what they help us with is snow removal, litter removal, power washing, and the beautiful thing is, yes, we provide them with wraparound services and those skill sets, but what Bayard has been able to do is really also support long-term placement with livable wages. And so the executive team actually makes it a point to go and connect with and meet with these program participants to get feedback from them. How is this going, right? And so the feedback that we've gotten has been resounding. And again, it's really providing the opportunity, the wraparound services, and then that long-term placement with the livable wage is really, really important. And the last piece, and what really makes our partnership special, is feedback and evaluation, right? Those touch points. Are we meeting the mark? Are we still aligned? If yes, great. If not, what's missing and how do we lock in? And so that's something that we actively do with our partners to ensure that there's alignment throughout, not just for us as organizations, but for the participants and ultimately the communities that we serve.
I know that there are a lot of educational institutions that are present today. I see some of my fellow presidents from the Colorado Community College system here. I know that President Davidson is here. I know that there are others. There's also these different training institutions towards workforce development. Let me ask you all this. What advice can you all give us? Something that you would like to see from your educational partners? Because as we talk about doing the skills-based training, being responsive to the needs of the workforce, I can only imagine there are best case scenario situations that you've seen from a curriculum development standpoint, that responsiveness for your organization, your company. However, there are always opportunities and things that we can do a better job of in terms of supporting your workforce needs. Just out of curiosity, are there some advice that you all can share to the educational partners that are in the room?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I'm so happy for this question. A couple suggestions or advice I would say is, as this team knows, the business moves so rapidly. So really taking a step back and looking at our learning systems and asking ourselves, is there an opportunity to put in modular or stackable learning instances, which would allow us to be able to produce workforce skills, individuals with those skills, in a rapid and constant evolving environment. Allowing also to have learning be a lifetime process. I think many of us are familiar, K through 12 system, then you go on to college, and then what really happens after that? However, as we take a step back and we consider the emerging technologies and that the environments that we continue to work in will change and adapt, we need to create systems that support lifetime learning and integrate learning into the day-to-day aspects of all of our world so that we're continuing to evolve and meet those emerging needs.
I'm going to add to what you just mentioned, and I think it's the lifelong learning element, but specifically, and I mentioned this earlier, in the K through 12 space, but this will exist throughout, a young person's journey, is the development of leadership skill sets, right? Naming, critical thinking, empathy. We heard empathy earlier. Stakeholder engagement, communication. Every generation shows up differently, and the emerging generation is showing up differently, right? We've all experienced the new generation, and so really, how do we effectively integrate the generation that's coming up behind us to effectively partner with us, given that there are going to be differences. And I think one thing that we can really rally, and that's everyone in this room, beyond the educational partners or academic partners, is really focusing on leadership skills. So that we can develop our leaders for tomorrow and we can effectively work together as we navigate the future.
I think the critical thinking piece is so important. There's especially in engineering and science, there's such a focus on the fundamentals and absolutely critical. But in that, there is room for creative thinking. We all of us in this room want to hire the high achievers. High achievers are afraid of failure more often than not, and failure is part of learning. So in higher education, I think some room for a little bit of risk-taking and failure that allows us to get over that fear is something that would be really valuable. The critical thinking and the creative thinking are so important, because just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. And looking for new solutions, new ways of tackling a problem is always going to be valuable.
The only thing I would add to everything that's been said is this is a definite evolution, and one that I think we need to continue to build on the word partner together. So as we continue to look at the job roles that we have and the skills that we value, both from a technical and a professional and leadership capability, it's really important that we partner with all of you to understand how the curriculum is changing, the more traditional, I'll call it, ways of which we have majors and minors and education tracks, and how do we help those things come together, more seamlessly, and that's something that I think we can partner on.
Kirsten, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. As you talk about that partnership and you think about that dynamic of working, Fidelity perhaps, working with your educational partners, do you think that we need a new system in place for how we partner? Do you feel like we've got good bones on what we're working with now, we just need to make tweaks, or is there a need truly for a redesign in terms of how we do this work?
You know, I tend to think of it, again, more of an evolutionary standpoint. I think we've got incredible partnerships. We have a lot of pride in our education system, a lot of pride in where we go to school, and we have a lot of good relationships, customers, employees. So for us, it's really, you know, making sure that we're partnering with organizations and trying to meet everyone where they are. There's a lot of demands of our students, a lot of demands of our faculty, and so we're trying to make sure that we come together in ways that will really help, you know, further things on campus, further some of the other organizations that students are involved in. We've most recently deployed some student brand ambassadors, so they're local on some of our campuses that we recruit from to help us stay connected to faculty and be a little bit of an extension and arm from my, you know, my recruiting team. So we're thinking about some of those things to continue to try.
Thank you so much. Maria, no pun intended, as we get ready to land the plane. We've got so many leaders in the room on today, university presidents, workforce system leaders, K-12 superintendents, business and industry. If you could give one piece of advice to Colorado's business and workforce leaders trying to look around the corner and stay future ready, what would that advice be?
You know, I'm gonna go back to what I just mentioned in terms of leadership. Define it. Have those conversations and really uplift and have honest conversations about how we bring in and integrate that next generation. Specifically, you know, our Gen Z, Gen Alpha, as they integrate into the workforce, how are we going to collaborate, given that we have different lenses in which we see the world? And starting those conversations early and often. And from a business side, you know, having our conversations amongst each other and our peers of how are we going to be inclusive and welcome that next generation. So I think that leadership is going to be a big part of that, in how we show up for each other, and how we chart the course.
Thank you. Amanda, thoughts on that?
Yes, and so I would say, just by way of advice, is embrace collaborative and agile learning systems. Don't be afraid to form project teams that are just short-lived, that continue to either evolve or dissolve and move on. Invite your employers to be a seat at the table and align with them on expectations that there should be shared communication, shared resources, shared framework, and then leverage those employers to help design the curriculum for both their current and emerging needs. A couple of reasons why this is really important is, as we've already highlighted and as your hand's shown, the technology continues to rapidly change. So there's not a need to have that long-term project planning. Instead, again, that rapid evolution of skill development. In addition, as we consider our global economies and the impacts that are potentially there that we cannot forecast, businesses will quickly need to adjust to meet the global pressures that they're being faced with. By way of example, with the tariffs that were just put in place, we are now predicting an additional 100,000 high-tech manufacturing roles needed in the United States, which was not anticipated 6 months ago. So again, just all of that additional pressure that's put on employers and our workforce systems, and the ability to rapidly meet employers in the workforce where they are, it would be the key focus with that collaborative and agile partnership.
Thank you for that, Amanda. Kirsten, let me ask you, again, looking around the corner, future ready, what advice do you have for this audience?
I would say continue to be a listener, stay curious, talk to your employees, and be a connector and partner in your community, both internal to your organizations, but across the table as you are today. We are all in the people business here, regardless of industry or sector. And that, as we talked about earlier, just cannot leave the conversation or the equation. So that's the advice that I would give.
I think that the most valuable lessons I've learned from teams are when there are a variety of voices at the table. I am an intuitive decision maker. I have an intuition about something and I'm comfortable making that decision. I need data-driven decision makers around me to be my check. I think that when you have different ways of thinking at your leadership table, you're going to have the most robust problem solving and the best future. So continue to just bring diverse voices to your table in any job opening. It's good to have diverse voices.
All right, I think I've got time for one more question, and here's that question. Let's fast forward to 2030, okay? What do you hope will be different about the way that we hire, the way that we develop and retain talent, especially for the next generation of workers? I'll ask it again. In 2030, by 2030, what do you hope will be different about the way that we hire, develop, and retain talent, especially for the next generation of workers? Amanda?
Sure, I'll start. So my hope as I look 2030 and beyond is just further focus on a work-life integration and really purpose-driven career paths versus traditional job titles. So really taking the opportunity to explore what problem does this individual want to solve? How will they help support our communities, our economy? How will they leverage those skills and working backwards instead of potentially starting with a very clear job title and then working into the degree requirements? So with that, again, that work-life harmony, that work-life integration, and career purpose-driven career paths.
I would just add that, I really hope that we maintain a strong level of human element in that recruiting, which I'm confident we will, because relationships are key, and connection to candidates is key. What I would say, though, is as we continue to deploy technologies and we continue to evolve skills for the future, my hope is that we actually have even more information at our fingertips to be able to more creatively source candidates and roles, maybe in future roles that they don't even think possible. And what I really value about some of the newer generation entering the workforce is they are courageous and fearless and willing to try a myriad of different things, which will keep us on our toes and thinking about how to continue to evolve the jobs, the skills, the roles, and the learning ways of which we learn in the workforce.
I love the work-life balance. I think that's such an important piece here, and as we've talked about new generations, I won't name any generations, but new generations coming in, certainly there are different expectations than maybe there was when I entered the workforce. I think that what fuels great careers is great opportunity, and so I hope that we continue to create wonderful opportunities for the future generations so that they have the ability to pursue a meaningful career, something that gives them purpose, fills their professional soul in a positive way. And so, a combination of all of the things you've said and a flexible understanding. Gen Alpha, I've only heard that recently, and it's a real thing. Is it Gen Beta after that? I mean, at some point, they're just going to have priorities that we don't yet know what they are. And when we see them coming, I hope we are incredibly flexible in that area.
Yeah, and for me, in that tone, in that line of flexibility, I really hope that we can develop more collaborative processes. Earlier, we talked about more flattened structures within organization. Being open to what that looks like, right? And in the next 5 years, we know with the advancement of technology coming so quickly, I think that we're going to see a tremendous change in how we do business, how we collaborate, and how we learn even. And so my hope is that we are all at the table, willing to collaborate and do different.
I don't know about you all, but I certainly enjoyed my time with you all. Audience, can we give our panel a hand?